Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the fiscal year 2022 budget discussion meetings. Today is the 8th of April, 2020. 2021, and it is 5:30 p.m. Before we begin our actual meeting, I will read the following statement. This meeting is being recorded and videotaped by the Ways and Means Committee and GCTV 15. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Okay. Can we have a roll call, please? Councillor Bottomley.
Yes. So, Chairperson Forgy.
Here.
Councillor Jarvis.
Here.
Councillor DeSorger.
Here.
Councillor Mayo.
Here.
I'm Councillor Bottomley. I'm present.
Okay. Thank you very much. There are no minutes to be approved. I'd like to start by opening this meeting up to public comment. This evening, I would like to say that we are talking to three department heads regarding their capital budget for 2022, and those would be GSET, police and fire departments, that's public safety, and recreation department. If anybody wants to speak, please sign into the chat box. And if you could list your name and address, that would be great. I look forward to your comments. Is there anybody there that wishes to speak? Please sign in. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. I'll make the offer one more time. Is there anybody here online that wishes to participate in a public comment portion of this budget, which is for GSET, Public Safety, and Recreation Department? Okay, if I don't hear anybody within the next 5 seconds, we're going to move on, and we'll start with our the order which is on our agenda, which is we're going to talk to John Lunt, who is the director of GSET. And welcome, John. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Okay, we did hear last evening from the mayor and from Liz Gilman regarding capital requests. I understand that the capital request you made is from an enterprise fund, and we'd just like to be updated to a little bit of the minutia. That's what we're talking about
Sure.
this evening.
Sure. So for GSET, it's actually pretty straightforward. For us, capital money is for build out. And we take that money that we get every year when we open up another area. We're just, in fact, I just sent a press release off today. We're just opening up the Deerfield Street money, which is what we used last year's capital budget for. So Washington Street, Deerfield Street, Mill Street, streets off of Mill Street, Meridian Street, Water Street, parts of Petty Plain Road, and Bonneville and Colorado are all being literally turned up over the next couple of days. And we will be covering an additional 450 homes with that expansion. And we have a bunch of people who have already lined up and are waiting for us to finalize so we can keep going. The next area that we're planning on, we're already doing some of the advanced work, is North Greenfield, heading up Bernardson Road and moving out into the North Greenfield area. And we have worked really hard over the last few years to be as operationally tight as we can, but capital is capital. And when you have to buy equipment and you have to buy fiber and everything that goes involved, including work that has to be done at the POP, that's just something that we need to have capital for to do. And it's a pretty simple equation for us. If we have the capital, we can do it. If we don't, we can't. And I think GSET really depends on covering all of Greenfield, and we're working towards doing that. And this is how we get there. And the more people we cover, the budget for next year shows us reaching that break-even point. We should actually, by the end of this year, be on a month-to-month basis breaking even. But we have to have coverage of enough of Greenfield to make sure that it's something that we can do effectively and repeatedly. So it's very important for us.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions, and then I'll open it up to Ways and Means Committee for questioning. When you say equipment, are you talking about conduit? Are you talking about please describe to me what
Sure.
Equipment to build that would mean.
Sure. Actually, this doesn't include conduit. This is aerial. So that means going down the poles that are jointly owned by Verizon and Eversource, and we work with them. There's an engineering and survey process we have to go through. But it means the stay wire that we wrap the fiber around. It means the fiber itself. It means all of the hardware involved in mounting that safely and within specs onto the poles. It includes the work that we have to do. We have to do quite a bit of work for Eversource and for Verizon to make sure that the engineering is correct and the stress loads on the pole is correct. There's a whole process to go through. But it also includes additional switches that we need to have. It includes making sure the work is done at what we call LCPs, local convergence points. We have one of them on French King Highway. One of them is right by the Academy of Early Learning, and additional work that needs to be done at the POP. When you bring an entire new area online, then you have to make sure the capacity of the network is able to handle that. It also includes the equipment that's necessary to connect actual customers to the network too. And it includes the work that needs to be done to make that happen. So it's really the build out materials and labor that go into working in a new area. And that for us breaks down into we do fixed wireless, so it means radios. It means power sources where there are no power sources. And it means the sort of long process of getting out there with our outside plant team and going down, working with the fire department to make sure that, and the police department to make sure that we can do that safely with police details, to make sure that we can get the strand and the fiber up to bring more homes into our coverage area.
Thank you. I just want to verify with you as well that the municipality the city is doing the borrowing on your behalf, but you will be paying that off through your enterprise fund revenue. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll open the floor up for any member of the committee that wants to ask a few questions of John. You've got them. You better ask them. So go ahead. You don't need to, don't raise your hands or anything. It's fine. I think we're mostly all adults here and we can deal with this.
So I have a question. That sounds great, what you're getting done down by Deerfield Street and 450 homes. So what percentage then did you say of the town would be?
That's going to take, sorry, Jenny, I didn't mean to interrupt. Counselor, pardon me. That should add about 3 or 4 more percentage points and get us to around 87 88%. We calculate it through E911 addresses, so you're going to have to give us a percent, but high or low, because it's hard to be that exact.
And so that'd be 87%. So Briar Way is not included with that, is it?
No, because that is underground, and underground is a very difficult thing for us. We spent quite a bit of time. The DPW and engineering departments have been very helpful, but and the fire department as well. But we don't really have a lot of conduit that is accessible to us. And honestly, the underground is going to be something that happens later on in the process, because it's so expensive to do that. And it is astronomically expensive in many cases. In areas where we can figure out a way to trench through turf and maybe come up that way to certain areas, we're looking into ways to do that. But trenching in the street is millions and millions of dollars, and that's just not something that we can do right now. We are looking into other ways of doing it, putting up poles in the back areas of certain streets and developments that have all underground conduit, because when those were built, the city didn't have any of its own, and frankly, most of the conduit that's there is owned by competitors of ours, so they're very unlikely to let us use it.
Thank you.
More questions?
Yeah, John, just Jarvis, real quick. I see your capital outlay for 5 years. It goes down substantially. So, are we looking at maybe a five-year plan where you might be reaching the end of your capital requests? Because I see in the 5th year it's only 50K.
Correct. Yes. Right now, North Greenfield, and forgive me, I'm going to speak in general areas. North Greenfield, sort of the Laurel Street, River Street, and Wisdom Way sections of Greenfield are the 3 really big areas left that we have to cover. There are certainly other areas, and I don't want anybody to think that means we're not going to, but we tend to think in terms of project areas. And for us, that means North Greenfield will begin by going up Bernardston Road. There actually is some of the conduit that we can access is under Severance Street that will get us across 91, which is a very difficult thing. But we will also look at going to the east out Log Plain Road, east into Adams Road, and then going from Bernardston Road over to Barton. We'll take a separate path up, generally going along Coleraine to get up to the Meadows and to Green River Road and places like that up there.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have, there's a 14% of Greenfield is still a significant amount of houses. It's about 1,200, 1,300 homes. So we do have that to do, but we think if we can continue on this pace, and I mean, if we were lucky enough to get a grant, we'd do it sooner than that, and then we wouldn't need the money later on. But because that's always the dream. But if we can't, then we have to try and do it in a way that balances out what we need and what is acceptable for all the other needs of the town too.
Liz, were you waving your hand with joy, or did you want to speak?
No, I really was. We are very hopeful. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And she lives in
Well,
Phillipston. What can I say? We haven't gone there yet.
No.
We have, I'd like to wrap up, but if there are more questions, I'd encourage you right now to ask
I do have
them.
a question.
Okay.
Chris, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Doug.
Madam Chair. Mr. Lunt, you said that at the last meeting that you were at, I think it was 80 something percent that you were close to meeting that to actually making some headway paying some of the money back for the town lent you. Do you know, on a separate question, and maybe, and obviously this is linked, but do you have a list of people as they call in that they would like service? Do you keep a list of those people and say, well, we can't offer you service right now, but we're coming close, and we'll let you know when you can when we'll get service out to your area. I mean, just want to get a sense of how many people have called in and asked for GSET service and can't get it yet.
Sure, we do keep a list, and it does come in handy because, for example, we in the last few days have been getting in touch with everyone in the Deerfield Street area saying, hey, we're here. And that is helpful to them and to us. It's still hundreds of people, Counselor, who would like to have GSET service and can't get it yet. Again, 1,200, which again is a rough estimate. You can find 5 different numbers for how many dwellings there are in Greenfield, but I think about 12 to 1,300 is still a pretty good number of homes we haven't gotten to yet. We generally, after the first year, have about a 35 or 36% percentage in many different areas. So there are hundreds. I would say conservatively, there's somewhere in between 350 and 500 additional homes who would get it pretty quickly as soon as we were covering in their area. So, and that's really the key for us. If we can have the full pool of Greenfield to work with, then we'll be able to not only repay everything that the bond and the capital request that we've made, but as you know, the board of directors of GSET, the board of commissioners, pardon me, has sent a letter to the council back in the beginning saying that we are committed to, when we get to the point where we are in surplus, to using a pilot program to bring some of that money back to the city. That's what we want to get.
Right. How close are you to that?
The budget we submitted that's in the current budget book for next year is a profitable budget for us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you.
One
Yep,
more
go ahead,
thing.
Yep.
Is there a guarantee that everyone is it's going to be available to all?
I'm really hesitant to say 100% because there are some particular issues that it will be available to the great majority, 99% of Greenfielders, but all is a tough number. There are people who live way out at the end of dirt roads will eventually get there, but you will see. I'll give you an example. Whip City in Westfield has been around for about 5 years longer than we are, and they're not even to 80% yet. So the answer is yes, but it's really more a question of when, Counselor. And I think that we'll get to the 98% range in a fairly short period of time. But that last 1 or 2% is going to involve a lot of expense. And we can do it, but we have to be at the point where we have the reserves to be able to spend on that. So usually we don't say no, but there will be probably 30 to 40 homes as a rough estimate where it will be very difficult to get there. And we'll have to figure out some creative ways to do that.
I do see some of their trucks, more of their trucks, Westfield's trucks, here in town. Are they helping you, or are you helping them?
No, they generally come in. They're headed out towards the West Country because they're doing some work in small towns out to the west of us. They don't do any work in Greenfield, and we'd be happy to help them. They haven't asked for our help, and we have our own build team, so we do
Right,
our own building.
right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that has a question on Ways and Means? Is there anybody else that from the public that wishes to comment on this? If so, I need your name and address, please. Okay, I want to thank you very much, John. We appreciate you taking the time to explain your capital needs to us, and we'll be seeing you soon on the operating budget side.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
too.
John.
Thanks.
Okay, public safety is up next, and I want to start off with the fire department. The request, Chief Stran, are you there? You are. The request is for an ambulance. I understand that this is going to be a 7-year lease. And the request is for, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my number here, 295,000.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. Would you be kind enough to talk to us a little bit about this ambulance, your need, and why the lease?
Sure. The ambulance that we're requesting would be a new ambulance that we would lease over the no more than 7 years. Our ambulance service started when I first took over as chief in 2013, and since we've started the ambulance service, we've gone through 4 used ambulances. And so the ambulances that we've purchased are anywhere between 15,000 and up to 50,000 a piece. They have high maintenance because they come to us used, and they've been used hard. And so our maintenance is high on them. And so when we built the ambulance service, we anticipated that we would able to pay for its own equipment once it was up and established. So fast forward to this year, the ambulance revenue is up to support the cost and ongoing cost to purchase a new ambulance. There is not the funds in there to purchase the ambulance outright, and so that's why we're leasing. The lease rates are very good. The last engine that we purchased and then the new engine that will be delivered within the month are also from a lease program. So it's been very successful for us. Our ambulance service, when we started doing transports, we were a backup ambulance to the primary provider in town, and our estimated trips were going to be about 100 to 150 times a year we would transport. We'll be close to 600 this year. In every transport that we do, we bill for. That money then turns around and pays for the equipment, including the ambulance and all the equipment that's on the ambulance. And so it's to a point where it can support this easily, and looking for your support so we can put an ambulance that will be in service for 7 to 10 years.
I have a question for you, Chief, if I may.
Sure.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the annual payment for this ambulance will be paid back through ambulance revenues. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. And do you have an idea of how much is in the special revenue fund right now for the ambulance?
So well over 200,000.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Was the last one. Every day we are adding to that. So today alone, I believe we did 3 primary transports, which means every time that we transport, we end up billing the insurance company for it. So every day more revenue is coming in to support the program. I would like to point out that the ambulance runs not only as a transport truck, but it also runs as a first responder rig for our medicals. Our medicals call volume is about 50 to 60% of our overall call volume, and it's by far the heaviest used piece of equipment that we have, running on close to 1,700 calls a year off of that one truck. Now split between the two trucks. We have two trucks. This truck would replace one of them with one and hopefully cut down on maintenance costs and things like that.
Thank you. So to Ways and Means members, please go ahead if you have questions for Chief Stran. Now's the time to ask them. Thank you.
I'm not going to let Bob off that easy. Come on.
I was wondering.
No, actually, Chief, mine is really simple. People don't realize that we just don't go and buy equipment off a lot. That tomorrow it's going to be there. So maybe a little update to the members tuned in here about last year's capital that we gave. I know that when the trucks are coming, and maybe just an update on those because they do take a year sometimes to build out. So
Sure. I appreciate the opportunity to address that. So first, let me address the ambulance. When the vote is taken, and if it's an affirmative to purchase a new ambulance would be anywhere between 9 and 12 months to build and deliver. So it is not something that happens right away. Last year's capital, we purchased the brush truck. I am happy to say that the brush truck came in less than a month ago, more like 2 weeks ago, and has already seen some pretty heavy duty and has responded on multiple calls already. The large pumper rescue that was approved last year we are expecting it to come off the assembly line on the 30th of this month and a final inspection the beginning of May with delivery to us somewhere in May. And the last off-road truck will be delivered somewhere in October or November. And all of them were spec'd out and purchased by July of last year. So, and again, to highlight the money, the funds for this particular request, I'll highlight just again, is coming out of the ambulance revenue account, and we are not asking for capital funds or bonding to purchase this ambulance.
I'm just going to say, I think that's why you're not getting a lot of questions, because we were all happy with that part. Chairperson Forgy, I just wanted to tell you that I have a text here from someone that has been on since 5:30 who was trying to speak in public comment. And so I just said after the chief had finished, I would tell you that. It's Barbara Zacchio, who's on the call, wanted to speak in public comment. So just saying that out loud to everyone.
Okay, all right. So Barbara, if you're there, if you let us finish this particular piece up, I'll make some time available for you to speak. Okay, is there anybody else who has any other questions for the chief? Chief, if we were to purchase outright, how much would an ambulance cost?
$295,000.
Okay, thank you.
Same cost. Yep.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay, Chief, thank you very much. We'll be seeing you during operating budget time, and we appreciate you being with us here this evening. Thank you.
Look forward to it, and thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Okay, Barbara Zacchio, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, if you have comments on any part of what we're going through this evening, we would welcome some input from you. So go ahead.
Okay, great. My name is Barbara Zacchio. I live at 89 Crescent Street in Greenfield. I'm representing myself only. I have served on the Recreation Commission for almost 2 decades. So I admit I do have some bias on the 2 projects, which I will be addressing. I've done a lot of research and reviewing the research that Recreation Department Director Moore has done in reviewing sites for the skate park And that's been a lot of time and effort. As you'll recall, again, as a private citizen, I did work with my business partner, Mark Zacchio, on the 3032 Olive development of apartments and mixed use building there with 2 commercial suites, fully rented out as it has been the entire pandemic, proud to say. And the disappointment of that skate park being disassembled as a result of wear and tear over the years and development of that property by my business partner and I was palpable. People were actively using it while we were developing about a decade ago, and we're disappointed to no longer have that community resource. I'm pleased that the siting research has resulted in a downtown site, which I think will be great for downtown. It's accessible for pedestrian transportation because some of the people that skateboard are walking or biking or riding their skateboards. So having it downtown is convenient and great in terms of a drop-in. I appreciate it as a parent, having a skate park downtown as well. Not all kids are in the category to be able to afford uniforms, to have a family schedule that allows them to participate in practices and interact with coaches and things. And I think a skate park is a great community resource in that people can drop in and do the sport, mix in the community, and not be confined by a schedule or economic deprivation due to large equipment costs. In addition, I'm a property owner downtown. I own about, with my business partner, about 25 properties. And I appreciate the value of a skate park because it is a place for people to skateboard. I do have property damage on a regular basis from skateboarding, and I do drive around and request that people find someplace else to skate or redirect them to Turner's, where there is an existing skate park, but I think it would be a great amenity to have in Greenfield. In terms of attracting people to town as a result of the pandemic and even before the pandemic, we work with a lot of people that want to move to Greenfield and are relocating from either Northampton or other parts of Western Mass or outside the area, New York City, Boston, because of the idyllic setting that we have here. I know as public servants, you all are aware of that, but as someone who's lived in Washington, D.C., Syracuse, New York, and out in California, I appreciate the amenities that we have for recreation here in Greenfield. And I think the skate park would be a great one and an important economic development attractant. Finally, Christy Moore has been very successful as the Recreation Department Director in procuring lots and lots of money. I don't have the figure at my fingertips, please forgive me. For many new playgrounds, almost every playground in Greenfield has resulted from a park grant. So she has a great track record, and that park grant money would greatly assist a skate park. I'm also a master's in public administration graduate from Syracuse University. I'm aware of public finance. I'm aware that there's limited funds in Greenfield. I've lived here almost 2 decades. I know money's tight, but I think this is an important resource that I'd like your consideration on. Finally, the bocce courts at Beacon, I think would target a population that we don't do as much programming for, adults and senior citizens. The town that I was raised in, Mountain View, California, had a bocce court. It was very well used, great culturally for a lot of mixing of different ages, and a great resource for a very low cost. Again, I realize there's limited funds, lots of priorities, lots of safety concerns that you're all making decisions on, but your consideration of this small item, I think, would be beneficial for our community. Thank you so much for your time, and I apologize for the technical glitch. I don't know what's wrong with my iPhone that it doesn't do the chat, but whatever. Thanks for your time. Email me anytime if you have any questions. barb@olivestreetdevelopment.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barb. We appreciate you taking the time to share your comments with us. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it. We're moving on next to the police department and their request. Chief Haig, welcome. And
can you hear me?
We can hear you, and the mayor.
Okay, perfect.
Mayor told us a big secret about you today, so you know.
Yeah, I'm creeping up there, but I appreciate you sneaking me in.
We're hoping you're having a great day, with the exception of this tiresome meeting. Anyway,
Not a problem.
okay. So we have a capital request for 1,350,000 to upgrade and reconfigure the police station in Greenfield. And we did hear from the mayor last night and from Liz Gilman that according to what we heard last night, the kind of review for us would be, could you speak about the consultant that's hired for a needs assessment? Speak about the server room for your IT issues and your dispatch space. And I know there are some other issues in there. So those were the three that were brought out last night. If you could give us just a bit of an overview, and then we'll just open it up to questions. So thank you, Chief, for being here this evening.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Yeah. So originally, I mean, back when we were talking about a public safety complex, a lot of these issues would have been addressed, obviously, if we were doing a new build. Now that we know, obviously, we're not moving, and we're probably not moving anytime in the near future, our building is really kind of space-wise, when you look at square footage, we haven't outgrown it, but unfortunately, the structure internally really doesn't work for us anymore. Obviously, we worked very hard to get to accreditation. That was a big challenge for us. There's certain parts of our building, and I can't go into all of them because some of them are obviously, I don't want to put out there that we have certain security issues, but there are certain security issues that we're going to probably not pass on, or not probably, definitely not pass on in 3 years when we have our review for reaccreditation. There's certain safety standards for the building that are required. One of the ones I can speak to directly is our Sally port, which is where we pull in. It's supposed to be a secure structure where when we have somebody under arrest and we're bringing them into our building. Right now, we have a temporary Morton building attached to a permanent structure. The locks don't work. It's also being used as a larger space storage for evidence. We have locked structures in there. It also has our washer and dryer, our toolkits for our cruisers, things that aren't going to pass accreditation next time around. We were able to get through it this time for different reasons. We are not going to be able to survive it the next time. Accreditation constantly changes. The police reform, as I'm sure everybody has heard, that's coming now. Department's going to be required to become certified. We're obviously already accredited. We don't want to lose that. Internally, we've changed demographic over the years. We have more women that work for us, which is a great thing. We have our first female supervisor, also a great thing. However, we don't have a female supervisor's locker room, but we have a male supervisor's locker room. We're running out of space in a female supervisor's locker room back when we only had 2 or 3 women that work for us. We have many more women that work for us now. We need to have a bigger or more, I would say, streamlined locker room situation than we have now. Dispatch is, quite honestly, I mean, if any of you have been in our building, they work basically in a closet. There's no natural light in there. It's very small. Off of the dispatch room is where our server room is right now. We are going to have to move that server room regardless of what we do at some point, and that needs to be in a climate-controlled environment. And the room that we have right now that's climate-controlled is small. It won't be able to house both. Our cell block at some point will have to be upgraded. Right now, we fail every year. Now, we're grandfathered, so we get the notice from the state every year that says you don't fit under the guidelines for suicide prevention and everything else. However, we've been there for so long that we're grandfathered. At some point, that's going to have to be adjusted, or we're not going to be able to pass accreditation standards for that. But once you touch that room, that actually creates a different issue, because that means you're going to have to come up to code for a lot of other things. Our booking area right now is, and again, if you've been in our building, and I would invite anybody to come in our building and I'll walk you around personally, our booking area is not conducive for officer safety or prisoner safety. We're being put into an environment that bad things can go really bad. That needs to be adjusted and fixed. We have things like the parking lot that is, well, it's been there since it was a doctor's office. The parking lot has to be redone. We also only have one mode of getting in the building for the most part, and we have the public and our officers using the same door. These are just things that going forward would have been addressed in a public safety complex that obviously, now that we're not going, need to be addressed. I could probably go on about more. Our lockers are completely outdated. I think we have 3 keys that open up every locker in our locker room. That's not ideal when we're trying to secure weapons and everything else that we have. There's other issues that we have where, our evidence room right now is really at the peak of what it can be, and we're doing a good job with it. My deputy chief, who was a lieutenant before, has done everything he possibly can to facilitate that for accreditation purposes, but we're out of space. So these are the things that are going to have to go forward, and that will be more than what I'm asking for right now. But if we don't start with the things that are going to affect the accreditation right now, and we push it off for another year, we're going to run out of time to get those things taken care of immediately.
Thank you, Chief.
I can answer any questions specifically.
Okay. I will open up the floor to questions. And again, if people, just participate if you wish. Anybody got questions for our chief?
Chief, I have a question for you. Is your accreditation year to year, or is it? I don't understand that part of it. Is that a yearly thing?
Accreditation. No, accreditation right now is every 3 years is the review. However, because we're switching to a model of more of an online virtual type of accreditation process, we're looking at a potential of they'll be able to go in yearly and check certain things because basically they don't want departments to sit back for 3 years and do nothing and then just, go nuts on year 3 to try to make sure you get accredited again, and then you forget about it for year 3. So they are in a process right now, and we are, I'll be honest with you, we are ahead of the game in that. The DC, this was something when we first started, well, I shouldn't say we first started this process probably 25 years ago when I first got here. But in the last 2 or 3 years where we've actually really jumped into this, we've prepared for this. Everything we're doing now is online. Everything we do now is electronic because we're ready for this annual type of checkup that they'll do. They won't do a full accreditation every year, but they're going to have the ability to come in, kind of backdoor, look at what we're doing to make sure that we're following the rules annually. It won't be a full annual check, but that's what's coming. That's part of the next accreditation phase. We worked really hard to kind of beat that phase to make sure we got our first level of accreditation, but we are preparing and have prepared for this next level of accreditation where they'll be able to annually go in and check certain things.
Now,
you have a follow-up, Mayo?
I do. Thank you very much. Chief, is your accreditation based, do you, because when I went through, I did a walkthrough of the building probably 6 months ago with the deputy chief and I think maybe yourself as well. And you pointed out many problem areas of which were very easy to see. Does your accreditation change your priorities, as problem areas come up? Even in like, if you, every 6 months or so, you come up with you do a self-evaluation and you say, oh, geez, this is going to affect our accreditation. We need to change our priority.
Great question.
Is that your, um, is that part of your thinking for accreditation?
So part of accreditation is the constant self-checking and self-verification. We want to have the best practices and policies and procedures in the country. That's why we do what we do. So we are constantly in self-assessment. So when certain things come up, I mean, we have obviously national trends, we have local trends, we have police reform, which is, changing things drastically for us. We constantly review. What we also do is we assign out throughout our ranks, our supervisory ranks, to look at different policies and procedures continuously. So that way we make sure that we have the most current. So we kind of call ourselves, and I'll give DC Gordon credit for this because it's constant self-assessment. We're trying to make sure that we're providing the best policies, procedures for our community on a daily basis. We don't want to wait a year and a half and find out something that we've done has been outdated. So we are in constant self-assessment. We review policies all the time. Anytime something comes up procedure-wise or otherwise, we review that particular policy. Something comes from the state, we go directly in and we review it so we don't have to deal with this 3 years from now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Who else would like to speak? Is there someone else?
Yeah, if I may, Chris.
Yeah, Councilor Jarvis.
Hey, Chief, how are you? Happy birthday.
Good, sir. How are you? Thank you very much.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Just a couple of things that I'd like to point that a question that I have, and I believe that you're just going to agree with me, is that the accreditation process helps the department to be proactive instead of reactive, correct?
Absolutely. We want to be ahead of the game, not chasing our tails.
Great. So it's a great thing to have. It was. I know you had stated last year that you worked hard at it. Your department works hard at it. Your officers and patrolmen and patrolwomen all work hard at staying accredited. And I do know that the dispatchers work in a tin can, and we need to get them out of here.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Is that space going to be where across the hall where we had discussed before? Is that where you're going to be moving them?
I mean, I would love, to be honest with you, our current roll call room, if we could readjust our building, our current roll call room, I think would be an ideal room for a dispatch, because I don't think, our dispatchers, they do a great job day in and day out. They're the first, basically they're our first line, right? And they answer those hot calls for us, fire, EMS. They really shouldn't have to deal with folks that are walking into our place for general business, for police business, fire business. They should be really focusing on what their duties and jobs are without having to do our job for us. So I would think, in my mind, I see them moving across into that roll call room where they get some natural light, they get treated like, the worthy employees they are, and we work out of there, as opposed to, kind of treating them like a reception area where that's really not their job. I appreciate the fact they do it, but their job has evolved just like ours has as well. So I do envision that room being where I would like to see the dispatch center over there. But to do that would be, logistically, there's no bathroom in there. There's no kitchenette in there. There's no, and let's face it, dispatchers live in there, right? Police officers, we can leave. they can't leave, right? They're there for their entire shift and usually, more. So where they are right now, it's just not not a healthy environment.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And part of my follow-up to that was going to be, wouldn't that be part of the accreditation to get them out of there dealing with the public so they can deal with their jobs and just focus on the dispatching part of it anyways?
Accreditation-wise, because I want to be completely transparent, accreditation-wise is a little different with them because they're a separate entity, essentially. I realize I'm their supervisor. However, they're a separate department. They're a separate budget. if they were currently under our budget, if we were all in one budget under police auspice, then yes, there would be severe. We'd already have severe issues for accreditation. I mean, we've been able to kind of manipulate that a little bit because of the fact they're a separate budget. However, I just think it's not a healthy work environment for these folks to be doing what they're doing in that 6 by 20-foot long room with no natural light, and also and handling walk-ins while they're handling 911 calls. It's just not a healthy environment.
So I guess a better way to paraphrase it would be that it may not be as part of the demographics or the layout that the state has for a 911 center to be handling public, dealing with the public also. Correct? They're just supposed to be there.
No, that's definitely not their idea.
Okay,
they would rather that not happening.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's a good move to get them out of there.
Absolutely. No, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief, I have a
No problem,
question, if I may. I would like
Sure.
to ask you if there are any monetary benefits to the city of Greenfield having a certified and accredited police department, i.e., do the insurance rates go down because we have it? Are we going to have less of an issue with the reform pieces that are coming to us?
Mhm.
And when the reform pieces come, are they coming with money?
Oh boy, I hope they are, Counselor. So, because I can tell you the reform pieces are going to cost us money. Hopefully they're coming with it, but I haven't heard that.
Okay.
So what I would say on the first part is do we get specific money coming to us because we're accredited? No. It used to be back in the day, you could get different grants and everything, and they'd always be a checkbox. Are you accredited or not? Yes or no? I'm not sure that helped you get money, but they always asked it. What it does do for you is it proves that you are using the best practices, the best procedures, and you're checking and getting rechecked and you're getting certified. So in theory and in hopes, and this is why we do it, if we're doing the right things now, we don't get sued, we don't get officers in trouble, we don't do the wrong practices that will get the city to be on the hook for a ton of money when we screw up. If we're doing the right things now, the right things should happen to us later. If you want to go through and say we don't have any, and there's a lot of cities and towns that do it, there's not a whole lot of not a majority that are accredited because it's very difficult to do. But if you want to go through and run the risk that you may or may not have the right policies and procedures in place and nobody's verifying that for you, then yeah, there's a liability issue there that's going to come back on the city. We are hopeful that because we do checks and balances all the time, we will be far less likely to have that type of liable issue that will come up because we've caught it or we've dealt with it or we have policies and practices in place that don't allow for that. If we handle our stuff up front, we shouldn't have to have the majority of issues later. That's what accreditation does for you. I wish I could tell you that it would give us $1 million a year. I can't, but it can prevent you from paying out $1 million a year in lawsuits because you did stupid moves that you could have easily prevented by having solid policies and practices that you in turn prove you do year in and year out.
Thank you, Chief.
Who?
Go ahead.
Chief, who actually is the entity that does the accreditation?
Mass Accreditation is the one that we go to that does our reviews. We actually we have self-assessment and credit reviewers that actually are Greenfield Police Department officers that we send to other departments to actually review them. But we have really worked very hard to get into the mix. So not only are we having people come into our buildings check us, our people are trained to go check them. Deputy Chief Gordon has been selected to start working on reviews for the state police. So we're doing a good job. You know, people are coming to us for it. That's a fantastic thing for the city of Greenfield to say that we have people in our department that go and review other people. That's a really, that wasn't here when I came here 8 years ago. It's here now.
Very good.
Thank you, Chief. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this capital item?
Yes,
Go ahead, John.
Chief, I have kind of a big picture question. So this is just 1 year, the 1.3 million, but ultimately going to be several years and multiple millions of dollars of renovations. But at the end of that, will that building meet your needs, or will there several years later need to be a completely new police station? And what needs would not be met in this building?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, sir. This is one that I wish I could just tell you that if you gave me the $5 million that I had talked about a couple of years ago, that we'd be done and over with. I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know. I do believe though that if we can, in my mind, because I'm basing my number off of what it was a couple of years ago with basically kind of Chicopee PD when they re-upped their department. You know, if we could get to that, then we could be there for another 15, 20 years. I mean, there might be some stuff along the way, you know, obviously I'll be gone, but the next person, I think along the way there might be something, but I think that what I'm looking at would allow us to stay in that facility for the foreseeable future, because quite honestly, I know things are, you know, financially the way they are. I don't expect us to be able to build a new building. Again, I always felt that if we were going to build a new police department, I wanted us in downtown. Like, I wanted us readily available. I'm not sure that's an option right now. And I don't see that as an option in 10 or 15 years. So I'm trying to prepare us to be there for another 15 years. And I think 5 million over 15 years is probably a small number.
Wilson's
Thank
is
you.
still open.
Thanks. Anybody else wish to speak to the chief before we can allow him to
I
go
do.
enjoy this evening?
I do. I wanted to know what the breakdowns are of the three things that you've talked about. You know, exactly how that 1.3 will be used. You know, like how much each
Well, part of that
portion
1 point, oh, so I'm sorry. Yep. So part of that 1.3 is, in my opinion, is we hire an architect that gives us what the 3-year overview is, period. Okay. And then what we do is we look at what the money will get us now and next year and the year after. Because like I said, if we touch certain parts of our building, we're looking at monster money and we're going to have to come up to code. If we do something in our booking room with our cell block area, that all is coming out. Because the cell block right now isn't going to pass inspection. But if we touch anything in there, we're going to have to bring it up to code. So maybe that's year 3 where the money is going to focus on that. So the first step in this part of it is we need to figure out the architect piece to tell us what's going to go on. Now the locker rooms, I mean, lockers we know is about $100,000. We know that the server room needs to be doubled in size. We know walls have to be taken down. The good part about our building was it was an old Kaiser Permanente hospital or like a doctor's office building. Most of the walls in there aren't support walls. They can come down fairly easy and they can be moved and they can be manipulated. Locker rooms and bathrooms different. So we need somebody to come in and tell us which portion can be done with this $1.2 million now, what can be done next year with 1.2, and what can be done in year 3 with the remainder. That's what we need that architect to show us.
Excellent.
So
But I can tell you that the security side of things, which I'm not going to go into because there's security issues, can be done out of this original. My feeling on the reason for the breakdown on this is we would address all the accreditation issues in year 1, including the architect to tell us what we need to do over 3, but use the remainder to do year 1 accreditation issues, because we're up for review after next year. We've been accredited for over a year now. Our review is after next year.
No, I saw
Don't
that.
want to lose our accreditation.
We are one of I think we're the only town in Franklin County that's accredited. There's only one in Berkshire County.
Oh, absolutely.
Quite a feather.
I don't think there's anybody certified in Franklin County, never mind accredited.
There isn't. It's just Greenfield.
I think there's only 4 in Western Mass.
Right.
That are accredited.
Yes, very, very few. So so that's good. That's wonderful. Do you think there's any wisdom in having an architect to come and look first before?
You just said that.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
sorry.
I mean, we
I'm
can,
sorry.
but I can also tell you there's other things I already know right now that need to be done.
Okay. I'm done.
So I know there's money that needs to be spent right now, regardless of an architect doesn't have to tell me the security issues. I need an architect to tell me the interior side of the building where certain things can be done. But when it comes to security outside the building, when it comes to certain things inside the building, security-wise, I already know that. I don't think it's wise to give people what our weaknesses are, for security. But I can tell you those are already here, and those are the ones that we have to deal with for accreditation. That's why I thought dropping the number when I talked with the mayor and we talked about why the number would be dropped. It made sense because these are the security issues, the accreditation issues that we need to deal with in year one. For the rest of the overhaul for the building, the other 3.5, absolutely we need an architect to come in and tell us how to restructure all that. So I agree with you on that 100%. Architect's probably going to run us close to 100 grand.
Okay. Councillor DeSorger, do you have any follow-up?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. I don't think that there's any more of us that have any more questions right now, but we will see you later on in the month. Happy birthday. I hope you enjoy your evening.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Chief.
Thank you, everyone. I
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you all. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. We have one more item on our agenda for this evening. Consideration, and I'm going to ask Christy Moore. I know she is here. I will ask you, please, if you would like to talk to us about the request for funding for the skateboard park and also for the Beacon Field or Beacon Park upgrades at this point as well. So, Christy, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing everything that's going on.
Sure. Well, good evening. Thanks for inviting me. I don't think I have as much to say because we had a wonderful public speaker, Barb Zacchio, on my rec commission. She did most of the speaking for me, so thank you, Barb. But I am over the moon excited that our mayor has supported putting forward our funding for the capital of the skate park. It's been over 12 years now since we have had a skate park in the city of Greenfield, and both the mayor and I agree before we both retire, although she'll probably beat me before I retire, that I want to be able to have a skate park for our community. We are proposing a 10 to 12,000 square foot concrete poured in place skate park, and similar to the design concept in Turner's, although it'll be larger. The concrete has a lot less maintenance, so that's why the new modern technology for building skate parks is poured in place concrete. And it would have space for those that are learning to skateboard, which is where I would be, with a big helmet and knee pads. And then more high tech jumps and ramps for those that are more experienced in town. We would use this money as our match for the park grant. The park grant, I'm happy to say, was just released a few weeks ago, and we are eager to start applying, and hopefully we'll be successful in receiving a $400,000 park grant towards this project. It's the same grant that we received when we built the dog park. I think in 2016 is when we built the dog park. We have a very active friends group and skateboard supporters. To date, we have fundraised $23,000 towards this project. To be honest, we have not pushed heavily for more fundraising efforts because until we had locked in the location, I felt it was challenging to continue to ask for donations when we couldn't tell them where we want to put it and what it may look like. So I think that's pretty much the overview of the skate park piece. And then kind Councilor Fuji, if you just want me to go over both quickly, I'll do that and then take questions about both. Is that how you'd like to do it?
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you.
Okay. And then the second request is $50,000 for Beacon Park improvements. That would include bocce courts that we've had on our capital plan for a number of years. And then refill and ADA water fountains, similar to what we put in at Lunt Fields, if anybody has seen those, as well as the Davis Street courts. And we put one at the softball field and one at the baseball field at Vets Field. Currently under the COVID regulations, water fountains themselves cannot be open and in use, but oddly enough, the refill stations can be. So if we were to have this supported and be able to put these in the fall for the fall sports season, that would be great. And hopefully by then we'll have less restrictions and can have full access to the fountains. With the original request on this was $90,000, but I did meet with the mayor and we did cut it down to 50. And so we may be looking at only one bocce court. It's all going to depend on the cost when we bid everything. And the water fountains themselves are about $5,000 each. And then we'll have to figure out with DPW and the engineering where we would put the ADA pathways, depending on the slope and everything, because we have to have less than a 5% slope for anybody in a wheelchair to access the fountains. So there's still some pieces to figure out with that, but this is the number that we'll be able to put some of the amenities in for sure. And it would be on the Jarrett Street side of Beacon, so not really on the larger ball field area. It'll be across the street. And as Barb had mentioned, this is definitely, an activity that us adults and the elderly can participate in. And I notice more and more now that it's brought to the front of our capital that when I travel places, there are lots of bocce courts. I just never realized how many bocce courts are around our area that I was just unfamiliar with. So I think that's pretty much it, and be glad to answer any questions if anybody has. Otherwise, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Christy. I do have a few questions to start the group off.
Sure.
What is the source of the park grant? Is it state or federal?
State money.
Okay.
And Greenfield is it's a 70-30 match.
70-30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Greenfield has to provide the 30%?
Yep.
Okay.
And we would get the max is $400,000 or 70%, depending on the cost of the project.
What do you anticipate the overall project coming in at?
With the reduction right around $750, because originally we had requested $450,000, but in consultation with the mayor and to be within her capital guidelines, we went back to the $350 amount in capital.
Okay. I'll throw it open to anybody else that has questions for Christy. Please, now's the time.
Actually, I do have a question about the location. Is there any other possible location besides the Davis Street lot? Just not to sound too prudish, but I think of my mom when I was a kid, she would have been like, you're not going down there. It's next to 2 bars. It's very urban. I don't know. I was wondering if there's it would have been nicer if it was in a neighborhood, not right downtown in that sort of urban center, but.
Well, as Barb had said, it's been 12 years that we've been looking for a site, John, with multiple mayors. And what the benefit of this location is that it's already paved, so it's already flat, so it'll save cost. And it is downtown, which is a benefit to any of the local convenience stores, the co-op, any place where people can grab lunch and food. In a neighborhood, there's a lot of concerns. People stereotype skateboarders. They think that they are going to cause vandalism. They're going to be loud, obnoxious. And so there's a lot of pushback from certain, people in our community that have a fear of putting a skate park in. So what's nice about there is that there aren't a lot of houses nearby. There's a lot of commercial properties, and it's like I said, it's already paved and it's ready to go.
Thank you.
Well, that was easy.
No, but you're not getting off that easy.
Hold on.
So do you think that 350 is actually is that going to be enough?
Well, as I said, the 350 we had been carrying for 10 years. We know that the cost of things continue to go up. But I still think, even with a 15% contingency and the number that I just gave Councilor Forgy, that we can make it work, Ginny. It may end up being just a 10,000 square foot structure instead of the 12, but we won't really know until we bid the project. So the park grant is due in July 14th, actually, and then they would award in December. So from January to June is when we would work on all the design specs and prepare all the bid specs, and then construction would start in July 1 if we receive the grant, and obviously you guys and City Council approve the funding. So we will know. But again, there's also we can apply for some other small grants, like the Tony Hawk Foundation. They actually just changed the name of that grant. I forget what it is now. And then there's for some other site amenities, we're looking at different organizations to help sponsor that as well within the park complex.
Great. So on the
Christy.
other, on the bocce and the accessible water fountains, you said the accessible water fountains, they're like $5,000 a piece. So two of them would be 10,000. I don't know. This might actually be for Director Gilman. I saw the ones that were down at Lunt Field. We had put in a couple of parking spaces, and then there has to be an accessible pathway. There needs to be an accessible sidewalk to the fountains. Does anybody know what the cost of that is? Maybe Director Gilman's on the line. She might know what that cost us at Lunt Field to do.
I can tell you, Ginny, that the Lunt Field project was built with block grant funds because it was in the block grant region, and we bid out the paving, and I believe it was $55,000 for all of those parking spots and the pathways to the fountain. I don't have that grant in front of me, but my recollection is that's what it was. But at Beacon, the parking spaces would be off of Sanderson and off of Beacon, so the pathway would be a lot shorter to the water fountain. So the two water fountains that exist at Beacon, one is by the clay tennis courts, and the second one is over by first base side of the ball field dugout area.
Okay. So
Christy.
Okay, go ahead.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ed.
Well done. Yeah.
I'll come back to Ginny. Go ahead.
Christy, this is Doug.
Doug, I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is not a question, but this is a comment that that has a lot to do with what we're trying to do. Is I have been married for almost 40 years, and I graduated from tech school in 1978. And one of the reasons why I left Greenfield to move to Northampton was that there was nothing for kids to do. And they had taken away, at one time, GCC was running programs out of a number of facilities like Beacon Field and other parks. but for some reason they just did not. They stopped doing that. I think for liability issues, and but the town of Greenfield didn't do anything to basically put something back for the kids to do. So there was a lot of back in '78 and '79. There was a lot of vandalism done by kids, and that left for me that left it didn't leave me any incentive to stay in Greenfield because there was really nothing for me to do except for the tennis courts that were
Excuse me, Doug.
around. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Doug. Is there a question that you would like to ask Christy?
No, but I do want to just say that I am very happy that this project is going along because it gives the kids something to do that was not there for a long time. So I guess that's I guess more of a comment than anything. But thank you for letting me say that.
Thank you. Ginny, I'm going to come back to you. I'm not sure you were finished with your questions.
I'm happy to let somebody else go. Did anybody else have anything? I had a few more questions. I always have a few more.
Go right ahead.
Right. So I think they sound great. I'm concerned that we might be underestimating a little bit on the cost because just listening to the 5,500 for the paving part of and I understand it's longer, but I think it's $100 a foot for sidewalks, etc. And I'm all for so that we just are putting 50,000 for this bocce court, the paving, and 2 water fountains. What do you think the cost would be like one bocce court, just the court itself?
So we could look at this whole project in phases then, whether we do the water fountains first or the bocce courts first. But our estimate for the bocce court is between 20 and 25 a court. It depends on when the bid specs come in, if we're going to put it with a wooden bumper. There's ones that have like a curbing bumper. There's ones that have poured concrete all the way around. That's like a sidewalk. So our estimates for putting forward the capital was between 20 and 25. The amount, again, Ginny, for the parking at Lunt was 55,000, not 5,500. But that was multiple parking spots, and also in some areas several feet distance for the water fountain access and the ADA pad.
Okay.
So again, we could do it in 2 different phases. We can get the bocce courts in, so there's something for our elderly population to utilize and have access to, and then in the following year, or if the costs come in lower and we have money to at least purchase the fountains with this, we could do that and then ask for money next year to get the pathways in, or potentially we could, contact Marlo and the DPW director and see what sort of sidewalk funding he may have or any extra paving money. We work very closely with DPW, and we stretch every penny that we can to get the most in our community for sure.
Thank you. Are there any lighting? Is there any lighting that's needed down at the skate park, or any insurance costs associated with it that we know?
We do not specifically have lighting in the plan. We do have a shade structure because obviously we want to make sure that there's a place that they can get out of the heat if it's a hot day, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, so I'd like to ask a couple more questions, if I may. Christy, you mentioned CDBG block grant funds. Would a project of this type be eligible for those funds?
I do believe that the skate park location is within the block grant zone. But I'm not sure what the mayor and MJ has laid out for block grant funding. Maybe she could speak on behalf of that. Mayor.
Yep. Oh, go ahead, Mayor.
I think you're right. I think it's definitely within the area that we could use CDBG funds. 21 is coming. CDBG is always a year behind, so to speak. So we don't, as of yet, that I recall, because I just had a conversation with MJ, we don't have any specific projects for 21. There may be some that would carry over, but and then there's always the leftover funds where it didn't cost us quite as much, or a project didn't need to be funded at the end of the day from 20 or 19. So I think that there is that possibility. I don't want to speak without MJ, who has a better handle on the future, or even Lindsay than I do in their own heads. So, but yes, I think somewhere along the line there would be additional CDBG funding, if nothing else, to plug a hole here and there.
And if I may add to that, Councilor Forgy, one of my concerns if we were to rely solely on block grant funding is I'm not sure the timelines would match up for the park grant. But as the mayor just shared at the end, like if we find ourselves short, perhaps we could look at any available monies there to add, whether it be lighting or whatever else we may need.
Well, that was where I was going next with the, I know that there's a time gap in a lot of these things. So I guess this might be a Liz question, more of a technical Liz question. And for you too, Christy. In order to apply for the grant, does this borrowing have to be in place?
We have to show that we have commitment for our match.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily think we have to have cash on hand, but that it has gone through City Council to support this project.
Okay. And when the project is awarded, you were saying the grant award would be in December. And so then I am assuming that the building would commence in the springtime. And this is a Liz question. Would the grant be used first before the borrowing would be executed? The permanent borrowing?
It depends on the grant. If it's a reimbursable grant, no.
It is reimbursable.
Okay. All right. So then, no, we would, do short-term bans until the project was complete, and we would get reimbursement as soon as we did expend some of the funds. Christy, do you know if you can do more than one drawdown?
I thought it was quarterly, but I can't remember.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, there's not too many grants, might I say, like the library grant where they just give it to you up front, which is great.
Okay.
Councilor Forgy, I can review the timeline if you'd like, if that would be helpful. So the grant is due July 14th of 2021, and we would be awarded in December of 21. And it's basically a 1.5-year grant. So from January 1st through June 2022 is our 6-month design. And then July 1st through June of 23 is when we have to complete the project.
Okay.
So it'll be fiscal year 23.
Okay. So we've been in a position before where, especially with the fire department and library piece going back and forth, where we didn't have a location. So to get back to, I think something that John had mentioned before, And you had said in your presentation that you know, don't feel comfortable asking for more money if you don't have a location in place. So I think you might be able to carry that sort of thought forward with the council might not be happy either. Is there a reason why this property cannot be identified right now and put into play, you know, as this is where we're going to put it? It gives the project more meat, you know, more, yeah.
Sure. Well, in the packet of material that you received, I know it was really fuzzy, the copy I had, but it did say that we are looking to put it at the C and D lot at off of Conway and Davis. So honestly, I'm terrible with what direction is which, but the lot closest to the Grapevine end and Salvation Army end,
Yes.
when I last spoke with the mayor, is what we were thinking about. I'm not sure if she's still on, but that's what we were envisioning.
And what,
Here,
I guess,
if
it might be Mayor or Liz at this point. What does it take to get a firm commitment that that would be where it goes?
probably
I know, Mayor. Sorry.
probably me.
Okay. Okay.
I'm up. Actually, I thought it was the other way around, Christy. We would stay away from that end because there are more. I mean, there is. I mean, everywhere in Greenfield is where somebody lives, so you can't avoid houses. But as Barbara Zacchio said earlier, it is I think it was Barbara, a more commercial area. It's a more mixed area, and they're used to businesses being open and so forth. So apologies to your mother, John, who's a lovely woman and makes wonderful pies. So I would say we were more thinking of the south end, if you think of the lot, closer to the Wilson's area. That was my recollection.
Okay.
But the north end is, I mean, it's really, I think if you just were comfortable thinking about the C and D lot, we don't want to give up an enormous amount of parking. But at the same time, we recognize that Greenfield doesn't have a lot of extra space. And for this type of thing, certainly not a lot of extra recreational space other than our other parks that would fit the bill for this type of event, or this type of recreational facility, sorry. So a central location that people could walk to, drive to, if parents wanted to sit while their kids are there, they have plenty of other parking that they could sit at, et cetera. I mean, there's many things that are attractive about the C and D lot wherever we put it on the C and D lot.
And I do believe it will be a destination park. I mean, if you guys have not been to Turner's and just sat in your car or went out and talked to the skateboarders there, like there are tons of people that come. There are tons of people from Greenfield that go over there because that's the closest park that they have to use. And if I could just add to what the mayor shared, so with a park grant, city council will have to pass a resolution in perpetuity that it remain a park facility, like we've done with other grants. So ultimately, I guess it would be city council who's going to give their final stamp of approval on the location, Mayor.
Okay. Question for Mayor and Liz at this point, and then I will.
No, actually, I just have yeah, never mind. It was a comment, but I'll wait until we get into it in our final.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Councilor Jarvis. Okay, so if this were to be eligible for CDBG block grant funds, okay, can a block, here's the question, can a block grant, and I don't know the answer, can a block grant be used to repay a borrowing?
I believe we would get that answer before we would actually do the permanent bonding. So we would know before we had the debt service, we would have some bands out and there would be some interest, but you may be able to charge the project directly if that it comes to that.
Okay, you can you see where I'm wiggling. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm wiggling
yeah.
to it. And I know
what
that
I think is great is that it is a state grant because state and federal can go together. Federal and federal can't.
right,
So
right.
The park grant, yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. It's good to know, and it's another way. It's another thing to think about at this point as well. Anybody have any more questions, comments that they'd like to share with Christy or ask Christy? Again, this is capital, and we got to vote on it in April. So if you've got questions right now for her, please. Okay. If we have, Councillor Mayo, do you have a question? Are you all set? Nope. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on, please. Okay. All right. Sorry, we had someone run out of battery. Okay, I'm going to thank you very much, Christy, for taking the time to be with us and answer our questions. And there is some excitement to this project, so I do understand. And I'm very pleased to have public comment on it as well. We'll see you again during operating budget season, but we thank you very much for being with us here this evening.
Well, thank you. And as always, if there's more questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
For your support.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so if there will be no discussion this evening. We will deliberate on this after we hear from the DPW, which will be next week, Wednesday, April 14th, 2021, 5:30, via WebEx. And it will be with Director Warner from DPW. And then after we listen to his presentation, we will definitely be beginning our deliberations. So please, everybody, it would be very helpful if we could deliberate, and it would be great if we could vote that evening. That I'm hoping that we could do that, and that would make things move very smoothly out to the council in time for the April meeting. So, having said all of that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, Mayo.
Okay. Thank you very much. The evening is ended this meeting's ended at 7:03 p.m. Thank you all very much for your diligence and your participation, and I'll see you at the next round.